I've had contact with him has said, no, he didn't actually do that, and he said, yeah, Thoreau's a nice guy.
Yep.
But well, I had something. I had something else to say, but I lost my thought.
Thank you for this beautiful film, and I have one question. So once he says that we have done this thing, and he says a group, so he was alone, and what does he mean, or what does this mean with we?
Well, that's a very complex question. Kosinski entered Harvard at the age of just turning 16, and he was kind of a boyhood genius in mathematics, but because of his skipping grades in grade school and high school, he was always very much younger than the students in his classes, and he became very under-socialized. And he himself admits to the anger that he has still to this day is due to that under-socialization and his frustration of kind of being an outsider. So when he uses we, it's his kind of, he's an army of one who would perhaps like to have other people in his army, but he doesn't.
Here. Yes, here. It's me? Here. There is a difference. When I was watching the film, I was thinking that maybe you want to make a difference, between, especially for American audiences, between being an anarchist and being a terrorist, because the bombs and how you can. I mean, are you thinking on that? And secondly, I would like to ask about the voiceover, and what was your intention when you did the voiceover?
What was the first question? I have jet lag so bad. I had something to say, and then your voiceover question.
The difference between anarchist and...
Oh, yes. Well, I would like to believe in a utopian society. And in my utopian society, it would be creative anarchism, where people rise to the occasion to solve a problem and then go back down into the group. And that's much different than terrorism. So the way I think of anarchy, it's in a much more positive way. And then what was the second question?
The voiceover.
Oh, the voiceover. I read the text in the cabin, and I wanted the sound to be very much not like the expansive sound that you're seeing, but the feeling of being inside a space that's 10 feet by 12 feet. I read it. I'm an awful reader. I get nervous, and I had many mistakes, and I took all the mistakes out, and then I put some of them back in, because I felt it when it was just. I mean, it isn't. It's supposed to be a professional voiceover. It's supposed to be somebody that lives in this cabin reading his journal with kind of a monotone voice and. Not expressing meaning through the way one reads, but through the letting the language speak for itself. So that was my idea of the voiceover, if that's what you're asking.
Yes. One question regarding the violence and the possibility of dividing or separating the question of what is autonomy, how do we understand freedom and so on, and the act of violence. I mean, I'm not quite sure whether it's that easy to say I'm for his cause, but I'm against violence, because I think that there is also a connection between his understanding of autonomy and the way in which he pursues this.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I mean, he admits to his violence coming out of rage and coming out of a hatred, but he also justifies his violence as being, if he doesn't use violence, he's being controlled by those people who do use violence, and so that's kind of his understanding of that. And intellectually, I understand that too, but I don't know how to negotiate those things, and I'm not a person that will ever do what he's done. I'm not interested in hurting other people. I'm interested in his idea of freedom, and that is not freedom to have power over other people, but to have freedom over your own environment. Now, that could mean that you need to cause violence, right? If you're attacked, etc. So it's a very complex question, I agree, and I don't have an answer to that. But the film is asking to consider that position and how difficult there is there an answer that can be said for that question? But it's a question that I hope the film raises.
Mr. Benning, about the material. Hello.
Okay, I hear you back here, so if you yell louder, you sound like you're there.
No, I'm up here.
Still don't see you, but...
Mr. Benning, about the material of your film.
Oh, there you are. Wait.
Yes. You use digital material, whereas in former times you generally used 60mm. And I always thought that the 60mm, with its instant blurriness, fits your pictures very well. It always was very gentle to my imagination when I watched your films. But now I think it's much colder. The images are much colder. Can you relate to this?
Well, it's two different mediums, and I relate to each of them differently. I don't want to make excuses for either of the mediums. They are what they are, and I'm trying to. I tried to use 16mm to its best advantage, and at times I pushed that beyond what it was capable of doing. Although then you get moving images and these kind of poetic things that come out of mistakes. The poetry of digital mistakes isn't as beautiful as the poetry of analog mistakes, so I can't help that. But I think this looks very gorgeous. It might have been a bit too large for a Apple ProRes 422 file, but from back further, if you sat back there, I would think it looked like 35mm film, almost.
Yeah, it did.
No, but I understand, but I also, a lot of people have nostalgia for film, and probably rightfully so, because it may not be long on this earth, except in museums.
I have a question about the encoded journals that Kosinski left. I'm here.
Unrecognized.
Two of the journals that you were using, it says, were actually encoded, and you decoded it with a computer program. Two questions. Why didn't the FBI do that work? Why did you have to do it later? And then why did Kosinski leave the manual for decoding so close to the encoded stuff?
The FBI did obviously decode that also. They wouldn't share that with me. However, the FBI did share everything they had of Kosinski's with the public by auctioning it off a year ago last May. and a friend of mine was able to raise money to buy all of the journals, and so